In the early 1980s, America was living fast. The economy was roaring back after a rough decade. Wall Street was booming, and flashy consumer goods were everywhere. Cars were no exception. Big, bold, angular machines lined showrooms, advertised not just as stylish, but as safer than ever before. Safety was becoming a new marketing weapon, and consumers wanted to believe it. Families wanted peace of mind. Parents wanted reassurance that the cars they bought could protect their children. And automakers knew this. That's why they leaned on one thing more than anything else: the government's crash safety ratings. It sounded simple enough. Buy a car, look at the safety score, and trust the numbers. But what if those numbers were never telling the full truth? What if the very ratings meant to protect you were quietly manipulated, rigged to protect profits instead of people? To understand the scandal, we need to go back to the role of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, known as NTSA. Created in 1970, after Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, shook the auto industry, the agency had one job: make cars safer. By the late 1970s, it had begun running crash tests, publicly releasing data, and scoring vehicles. Automakers didn't love it, but they adapted. And soon, these safety ratings became a powerful influence. A good score meant better sales. A bad score meant millions in losses. That's when the game began. Behind the curtain, Detroit's Big Three, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, started looking for loopholes. They discovered that while the government tested vehicles, the process wasn't as airtight as the public believed. For instance, NTSA relied heavily on manufacturer-supplied data for certain aspects, like safety equipment performance and restraint systems. And when it came to crash tests, not every single model was tested. Sometimes results from one vehicle were extended to similar models, opening the door for manipulation. Automakers learned how to exploit this. They carefully engineered cars to pass tests, rather than to protect real people in real crashes. Reinforcements were added to sections of test vehicles, areas that were struck during the government's standard frontal impact test. But those reinforcements often weren't present in the cars rolling off the assembly line and sold to families. What looked like safety was, in truth, a show. Consumers trusted the system. They believed that buying a car with a 4-star crash rating meant they were safe. But behind closed doors, engineers and executives laughed at how easy it was to teach to the test. They even joked about designing cars like high school students cramming for an exam, only learning the exact questions, never the full subject. And here's the chilling part: lives were on the line. While automakers played games with numbers, people were dying in accidents they should have survived. A car with an impressive test score sometimes folded like paper in the real world. Yet the illusion of safety continued, propped up by ads showing crash test dummies walking away unharmed. The cracks in this illusion started to appear thanks to whistleblowers. In 1982, an engineer from one of the Big Three quietly shared documents revealing how cars were being reinforced only for test conditions. Another exposed how companies were cherry-picking vehicles sent to NTSA, choosing ringer cars built stronger than the ones sold to the public. Still, others revealed that internal crash data, far worse than what was given to regulators, was buried in locked filing cabinets, never to see the light of day. The public didn't know it yet, but a scandal was brewing. A scandal that would show how the cars of the 1980s weren't just machines of steel and glass. They were weapons of deception. And the cost of that deception was measured in human lives. But before the truth came out, the game had to grow bigger. And in the next chapter, we'll see how automakers and regulators alike dug themselves deeper into the web of lies, and how the business of selling safety became more about smoke and mirrors than about protecting people. By the mid-1980s, the auto industry's grip on safety ratings was stronger than ever. Advertisements filled television screens with confident slogans: tested, proven, safe. Families bought minivans and sedans believing those stars and scores were trustworthy. But the reality on America's highways told a darker story. Fatalities remained stubbornly high. Some cars that looked good on paper were performing disastrously in real-world accidents. The contradictions couldn't stay hidden forever. And it was journalists who first began asking uncomfortable questions. In 1984, a series of investigative reports by the Detroit News revealed whispers from inside the auto plants. Anonymous engineers claimed cars were being handpicked for crash tests. Instead of testing vehicles straight off the assembly line, companies sent in special builds. Cars reinforced with extra welds, stronger doors, and carefully aligned parts. These weren't the cars people were actually driving. They were showpieces designed to score high. The stories caught the attention of CBS's 60 Minutes. Times Time to Talk. In 1985, the program aired a shocking segment that showed how certain models, praised for their strong safety scores, actually crumpled in independent crash tests run by consumer watchdogs. Millions of viewers saw the footage of doors bursting open, steering columns snapping loose, and dummies suffering catastrophic injuries. Overnight, the illusion began to crack. Congress soon called for hearings. Senators demanded answers from both the automakers and NHTSA. Why were the test results so different from real-world crashes? Why did it seem like manufacturers were gaming the system? That's when the floodgates opened. Internal memos were leaked. One chilling document from General Motors bluntly stated, "Build test cars to pass. Production models will not meet same standards. Cost too high." Another from Ford instructed plant managers not to replicate test car reinforcements, warning that added material eats into profit margins. It wasn't just the automakers under fire. The regulators themselves looked complicit. NHTSA was underfunded and politically pressured not to rock the boat. Insiders later admitted that the agency often turned a blind eye. When engineers inside NHTSA raised concerns about automakers gaming the tests, senior officials told them to focus on what can be proven and avoid making powerful enemies. The scandal now had two villains: the car companies and the very watchdog meant to police them. Public outrage grew. Families of crash victims stepped forward, sharing heartbreaking stories of loved ones killed in cars that had supposedly passed safety tests. Lawsuits followed, alleging fraud and negligence. One particularly haunting case involved a family whose small sedan had been advertised as having best-in-class crash protection. When their car was hit in a moderate-speed collision, the frame collapsed, the seatbelts failed, and the parents lost their two children in the back seat. In court, evidence showed the model had performed miserably in internal crash tests, but that data was hidden from the public. Meanwhile, consumer advocacy groups like the Center for Auto Safety kept the pressure alive. They exposed how star ratings could be manipulated not only by sending in ringer cars, but also by exploiting the test design itself. For example, because NHTSA relied heavily on frontal crash tests, automakers ignored side impacts, where passengers were most vulnerable. Some cars had steel-reinforced front ends for the tests, but flimsy side doors that offered almost no protection in real crashes.